7-year-old Amara Daniels stood outside the corner deli with a paper-wrapped sandwich shaking softly in her hands. Rainwater dripped from the two big sleeves of her faded pink hoodie. Her braids clung to her cheeks, plastered by the sudden afternoon storm. Her worn sneakers, white once, but now gray from age, squished with every step she took toward the man sitting by the alleyway dumpster. He was slumped against the brick wall, wrapped in a coat that looked far older than Amara. His beard was uneven, his hair a tangled cloud, and his shoes, if they could still be called shoes, looked like fabric barely holding together. His eyes were closed, and his chest rose only shallowly. The world hurried past him, men in suits, women balancing coffee cups, teenagers blasting music, all pretending they did not see him. But Amara saw him. She had seen him earlier that morning too, when she walked with her mother toward the community center. She noticed how he shivered even under the sun. She noticed his empty hands. She noticed how no one ever stopped. Now, as the deli's neon sign flickered behind her, Amara swallowed her fear, waddling toward him with the sandwich almost hugged to her chest. "Sir," she whispered. No answer. Her small voice trembled. Mister. I got you. I got you something." A businessman walking by scoffed loudly. "Look at that," he muttered to another man, not even trying to lower his voice. "A child wasting money on a bum. Probably her parents taught her nothing about responsibility." Another woman added cruelly, "Kids like that don't know better. That sandwich will end up in the trash anyway." Amara's spine tightened. Their words stung more than the cold rain. She wasn't even sure why grown-ups were so loud when they said mean things. All she wanted was to help. Her mother always said, "Kindness is never wasted, baby. Even when people don't understand it." But hearing strangers laugh at her, watching them wrinkle their noses with disgust, it made her tiny heart squeeze painfully. Still, she stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir, please wake up." Her small hand reached gently to touch the man's arm. His eyelids fluttered, revealing tired, piercing blue eyes, unexpectedly bright under the grime. When he looked at her, something like disbelief flickered across his face, as if kindness were a foreign language he no longer spoke. "For me?" His voice was raspy, barely more than a breath. Amara nodded shyly and offered the sandwich. Before he could reach it, a new voice burst sharply. "Hey! Get away from him!" A teenage boy, maybe 13, marched over, his two friends following like shadows. Their backpacks swung carelessly as they laughed. "What are you doing giving food to that old hobo?" the first boy sneered. Amara stepped back instinctively, clutching the sandwich to her chest. I just wanted to help." The second boy snatched the sandwich from her hand so fast she didn't even see his arm move. "Well, don't," he snapped. "People like him need to get a job, not handouts." The homeless man's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to speak, but the boys weren't done. The third boy pointed at Amara's soaked shoes. One of them had duct tape wrapped around the front to keep the sole attached. "Ah, look," he said loudly. "She doesn't even have real shoes, and she's giving away food. Bet her family's broke too." People passing by paused, watching like it was entertainment. Heat flooded Amara's cheeks. She wasn't ashamed of her shoes, she'd had them for years and loved them, but the way the boys stared made her feel like she should be. She took a trembling breath, voice barely steady. "Please, give it back. It wasn't for you." "Oh, we know." The ringleader smirked. "That's why we're helping you. You shouldn't feed trash." He tossed the sandwich toward the ground. Instinctively, the homeless man lunged forward, catching it before it hit the wet pavement. But doing so sent him coughing violently, gripping his chest as the teens laughed. Amara stared at him, horrified, not because he looked weak, but because she could see something in his eyes, shame. Deep, burning shame. And she knew exactly how it felt. The first boy shoved Amara with his shoulder as he walked past her. "Next time, mind your business, sandwich girl." The boys disappeared into the street, still laughing. Amara felt her throat tighten. Her eyes blurred. The man slowly lifted the sandwich, holding it as if it were something sacred. "Thank you," he whispered, so softly she almost didn't hear it. You didn't have to do this." She blinked through her tears. "I wanted to." A car honked nearby. A woman shook her head and muttered, "What a mess." Amara hugged her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how cold the world felt. The man studied her, really studied her, and something softened in his expression. A kind of sorrow. A kind of recognition. As if he knew what it meant to be laughed at when all you were trying to do was good. The rain thickened, drumming against the asphalt. Amara whispered, "People shouldn't talk to others like that." His eyes grew glassy. "No, they shouldn't." Then, as if the universe wanted to underline the cruelty she had just endured, a powerful thought settled over the scene. This little girl, who had so little, had given the most. And the world punished her for it. If this moment truly hits your heart, tell me where you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe for more life-changing stories. The man looked at her again, really looked, and a faint tremor went through his hands. He had been ignored, abandoned, forgotten. But this child, this little girl with taped shoes and a trembling voice, she had offered him humanity. And he would never forget it. Because one day soon, the world would learn his name again. Preston Hale. A billionaire in hiding. And the moment Amara handed him that sandwich, she unknowingly handed him back something far more valuable. His reason to return. The rain had finally slowed by the time Amara walked the homeless man, Preston, though she still did not know his name, across the street to the small bus shelter. It wasn't much, just a thin roof and 2 metal benches, but at least it would keep him dry. She held her tiny hands out as if guiding him, her steps short and careful, the way a child moves when they're scared to break something fragile. Do you want to sit here?" she asked timidly. Preston nodded, lowering himself slowly. Even through the grime on his face, Amara noticed how tired he looked, tired in a way she had only ever seen in people who had cried too long. His cough rattled again, and she waited patiently until it calmed. When he finally looked at her, she smiled, small and sincere. "I'm Amara." "Amara," he repeated the name quietly, like it was the first warm word he'd spoken in months. "That's a beautiful name." She shrugged a little. "My mom says it means, grace. But I think she just picked it because she liked the sound." He huffed a tiny laugh. "What about you, mister?" Amara asked, completely unaware that she was speaking to a man whose last name once commanded entire boardrooms. He hesitated. Then, too afraid to reveal himself, he simply said, "Just Preston." She nodded approvingly, satisfied. Then her little hand reached into her pocket and pulled out something folded and colorful. It was a sticker. A shiny rainbow star. She held it out to him. "For you." His brows drew together. "For me." Amara nodded, smiling bigger now. "When someone does something nice for me, I give them a sticker. But today, I gave you something. So maybe I should give one to you too. To make you smile." She stuck it gently onto the sleeve of his worn coat. And for the first time in a long, painful year, Preston smiled. A real one. But the more she stood there, the more her innocence glowed, so bright it softened the edges of the world around them. A bus drove past, splashing water. Amara lifted her feet to avoid it, but her duct-taped shoe still caught a wave of puddle water. She giggled instead of complaining. "My shoes always get soaked," she said cheerfully. "But Mommy says we'll fix them again on Saturday. She's really good with tape." Preston's heart squeezed. The girl had almost nothing, yet not once had she acted embarrassed about it, not when those boys mocked her, not now as she stood in the cold, dripping rainwater onto the pavement. "Does your mother know where you are?" he asked softly. Amara nodded. "She said I could stop for a snack after school, but I got you the sandwich instead." Then she added sheepishly, "I hope she's not mad." Her stomach growled quietly. Preston's eyes widened. "You haven't eaten?" She shook her head. You spent your snack money on me," he whispered, voice cracking not from cold but from disbelief. "Mr. Preston," she said matter-of-factly, "you looked hungry." She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the universe. No hesitation. No judgment. Just truth, and pure-hearted kindness. He felt something tighten in his throat, a knot of shame and gratitude he could barely swallow. In his old life, charity galas used to be routine. He'd stood on stages, signed oversized checks, given speeches about giving back. Cameras flashed, crowds applauded. Yet not once, had he experienced generosity this real. From a child. A child with taped shoes, no lunch, and no reason to care about a stranger. But she cared anyway. "Amara," his voice was soft, trembling. "Why did you come back to me? You didn't have to." She blinked at him as if the answer were obvious. And in her world, it was. Because nobody else helped you. Simple. Powerful. Innocent. The kind of innocence that isn't naivety. But a deep belief that people are supposed to be good. Preston looked away, blinking fast, trying to keep the emotion from spilling into tears. He had built towers of glass and steel once, yet somehow, this single sentence from a 7-year-old girl undid him more completely than any corporate collapse ever could. Amara swung her legs, humming softly to a tune only children knew. She glanced up at the gray clouds, then at Preston again. "I wish people were nicer," she said. "Mommy says kindness is free." He swallowed. "She's right." Amara beamed. And in that moment, before danger, conflict, and revelation would crash into her little life, her innocence stood untouched. Unshaken. A brightness so rare Preston almost couldn't bear to look directly at it. But he did. Because for the first time in a long time, it gave him hope. Preston watched Amara as she hummed her gentle tune, her legs swinging back and forth above the wet pavement. She seemed completely unbothered by the cold, the rain, or the cruel words thrown at her earlier. Children had a way of surviving storms with a smile, something he had forgotten adults could learn from. Still, a strange unease stirred in him. It wasn't the cold. It wasn't the lingering humiliation from the teens. It was something heavier, something he had been running from long before he ended up on that sidewalk. Amara didn't notice his sudden quietness. Her eyes traced the buses rolling by, the people hurrying with umbrellas, the pigeons hopping along the edge of the shelter roof. Everything amazed her. Everything except him. She didn't stare at his ragged clothes. She didn't wrinkle her nose at his unwashed beard. She didn't look afraid of him. That alone made him nervous. People who weren't afraid were often the ones who could see too much. "Mr. Preston," she asked softly. "Are you okay?" He blinked. "Yes. I'm fine." But he wasn't. He could feel the storm inside him building again, the one he tried to smother every day. He tugged the edges of his torn coat closer, as if he could hide in plain sight. Amara tilted her head. "You don't talk like the other people outside." That startled him. "What do you mean?" "You use big words," she said innocently. "And you sound like you used to be happy." Happy. A word that had almost disappeared from his vocabulary. She scooted closer on the bench until her shoulder brushed his arm. "Did you used to have a home?" The question was so simple, yet it hit him like a blow. He hesitated long enough that even a child could feel the weight of his silence. Yes, he finally whispered. What happened to it? She asked. He froze. Lightning flashed in the distance. Not the sky's lightning, but the lightning of memory. A boardroom. Papers on a table. Angry voices. A betrayal he never saw coming. Faces he once loved turning away from him. He forced a breath. It's complicated. Amara nodded as if she understood everything. She didn't. But her empathy filled the gaps. Did someone take it? She asked quietly. Preston stiffened. Her perceptiveness was unnerving. A black SUV rolled past the street, slow enough that its tinted windows seemed to scan the sidewalk. Preston's muscles tightened immediately. His eyes followed the vehicle until it disappeared around the corner. Amara didn't miss it. Do you know that car? She asked. He swallowed hard, pulling his hood lower. No. But she heard the tremor in his voice. The truth was heavier, darker, and far more dangerous. He absolutely recognized that type of vehicle. And the people who used it. And the empire it belonged to, his own. Preston Hale had once been the CEO of Hale Innovations, a tech giant whose inventions shaped entire industries. His face used to grace magazines. His signature ended deals worth billions. But that was before the betrayal, before the people closest to him tore his life apart for control. Before he disappeared. Amara, oblivious to the avalanche of secrets sitting beside her, pressed her hand to her chin thoughtfully. You don't look like a bad person, she said. But you look like someone is trying to find you. His breath caught. Children noticed everything. Amara, he said gently, trying to steady his voice, sometimes grown-ups go through hard things. Sometimes, they have to hide for a while. Her eyes widened with curiosity. Like hide and seek. He let out a weak laugh. Something like that. But who's counting? She asked. The question hit him in the gut. He looked away, unable to answer. Somewhere out there, powerful people were counting. Searching. Tracking. People who didn't want Preston found, not until the company was fully stripped of everything he built. His gaze drifted back to the street where the SUV disappeared. He felt the danger inching closer again. Then. Mr. Preston, Amara said softly, do you want to be found? He froze completely. Her eyes, big, brown, and full of truth, held no judgment, only hope. The kind of hope only a child could offer. He should have lied. He should have said yes. He should have said no. Instead, the only words that slipped out were, I don't know anymore. That answer made Amara scoot closer, placing her tiny hand gently on his. It's okay, she whispered. You can figure it out. Simple words. But somehow, they steadied him. Because even though the world had turned its back on him, this little girl with taped shoes believed he still had choices. Still had worth. Still had a future. And that terrified him more than anything. Because hope, real, honest hope, was a dangerous thing to give a man who had lost everything. Preston stared at Amara's little hand resting on top of his own, small, warm, impossibly gentle. It had been months, maybe longer, since someone had touched him without hesitation or disgust. The warmth surprised him. The trust shocked him. Children didn't calculate kindness. They simply gave it. You remind me of someone, Preston whispered, though he wasn't sure why he said it aloud. Who? Amara asked, swinging her legs again. He hesitated, but the truth came anyway. My daughter. Amara gasped softly. You have a daughter? Had, he corrected quietly. He didn't mean that she was gone. Only that he no longer had the right to claim her. Not after everything fell apart. Not after he vanished, leaving behind a girl who used to run into his arms every evening when he came home too late from work. "What's her name?" Amara asked. Preston smiled faintly. "Lily." "That's a pretty name," she said. "Does she look like me?" He chuckled under his breath. "A bit." "Then she must be really pretty," Amara announced confidently. Preston's chest tightened. He looked away, blinking back the memory of Lily's giggles, Lily's drawings, Lily's bright eyes begging him to come to her school play, one he missed because he was signing a contract that didn't matter anymore. Amara studied him with innocent curiosity. "Do you miss her?" "More than breathing," he wanted to say. But the truth was too heavy for her. "Yes," he said simply. A moment passed. The rain dripped rhythmically from the metal roof above them. Amara reached into her backpack again, rummaging through old crayons, worksheets crumpled at the edges, and a tiny keychain shaped like a moon. Finally, she pulled out a small folded paper. "This is for you too," she said proudly. He unfolded it carefully. It was a drawing, childish but vibrant. A little girl with braids like hers standing beside a tall man with a big smile. They were holding hands. Above them, in colorful letters, she had written, "Good people deserve friends." The drawing hit him harder than any insult thrown earlier that day. "Amara," his voice cracked unexpectedly. "You looked like you needed a friend," she said. "So I made this." He pressed the paper to his chest, afraid the rain might ruin it. Of all the things he had lost, billions, respect, control, this small piece of paper might have been the first thing he'd gained back. "You're very kind," he whispered. Amara shrugged modestly. "Mommy says kindness is my superpower." And she's right. The sound of his sincerity made Amara shyly cover her cheeks. She scooted just a little closer. "What's your superpower?" Preston smiled, a soft, reluctant, real smile. "I don't think I have one anymore." "That's not true," she said immediately. He looked down at her. "No." "Nope," she said cheerfully. "Your superpower is surviving. That's something only brave people can do." For a moment, he couldn't breathe. A child had just given him more grace than any adult had in years. He didn't feel brave. He didn't feel strong. He didn't feel like someone worth admiring. Yet here she was, believing in him without needing a single reason. Her stomach growled again. Preston frowned. "You really haven't eaten?" She gave an embarrassed nod. Slowly, he held out the sandwich she had given him earlier. "Let's share it." Her eyes widened. "But it's yours. And you're hungry." She hesitated, biting her lip. "Only if you eat first." He smiled, torn between pride and heartbreak. He broke the sandwich in half and handed her the bigger piece. She protested, but he shook his head. "You saved me today," he said softly. "Let me do this much." They ate under the shelter in silence. A billionaire in hiding. And a little girl with taped shoes. Sharing a simple meal that somehow felt like a feast. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. For a moment, they weren't a runaway and a child, they were simply two souls finding warmth in each other. Their bond, soft, fragile, and pure, was about to be tested. Because danger was coming. Closer than either of them knew. The rain had slowed to a misty drizzle, leaving behind a chilly quiet that settled over the street. Amara wiped crumbs from her lips while Preston folded the sandwich wrapper into a neat square, old habits of discipline he couldn't seem to shake, even after months on the run. Amara swung her feet. "Mr. Preston?" "Yes." "Will you be here tomorrow?" He hesitated. That question landed somewhere deep. Tomorrow was a luxury he rarely allowed himself to imagine. "I'm not sure," he admitted softly. Amara didn't push. Instead, She glanced at his coat sleeve, the one with her bright rainbow sticker, and smiled as if she had given him armor. But Preston's gaze kept drifting to the street. To the corners. To the shadows. That SUV earlier, he couldn't shake it. Too familiar. Too slow. Too deliberate. He tried to appear calm for Amara's sake, but his muscles were tense, his breaths thin. He had felt watched for weeks. Tracked. Hunted. And now, of all days. After the first moment of human warmth he'd received in so long, the past was creeping closer. Across the street, a man in a charcoal raincoat stood beneath a street lamp, pretending to read a newspaper. Only he wasn't turning the pages. Preston's stomach dropped. No. It couldn't be. Amara followed his gaze innocently. What are you looking at? He forced his tone steady. Nothing. Just, keeping an eye on the time. But the man wasn't alone. Preston noticed another figure, a woman leaning against a parked car, pretending to check her phone. Yet her eyes lifted every few seconds, in his direction. His pulse quickened. These weren't random strangers. He knew this pattern too well. People pretending to blend into the scenery. People who moved like they had training. People who didn't smile. Hale Innovations Private Security. His former life's shadows. He pulled his hood farther over his face, lowering it until even Amara couldn't see his expression. "Mr. Preston," she whispered. "Are you scared?" He flinched. Children could read emotions like open books. "A little," he admitted. "That's okay," she said simply, scooting closer until her shoulder touched his again. "Mommy says being scared means you have something to lose." He swallowed hard. Yes. He did. Though he hadn't realized it until now. He couldn't let danger touch this child. Not this girl who had given him food, friendship, and a reason to hope again. A bus hissed as it pulled up to the curb. People stepped off, hurrying away. One man paused mid-step, scanning the shelter with too much focus. Preston's breath froze. It was one of them. He quickly turned his head away, but not fast enough. The man hesitated, studying him with a flicker of recognition. Preston could feel the stare burrowing into his spine. He had to move. Had to leave. Immediately. "Amara," he whispered urgently, "I need you to stay very close to me right now." She didn't ask why. She simply nodded. Another SUV rounded the corner. Sleek. Black. Tinted. No logos. Preston's heart hammered. This was no coincidence. They were sweeping the area. Looking for him. He stood abruptly, making Amara jump. "We need to go." "But." "No questions," he said gently but firmly. "Just trust me." She grabbed her backpack and clutched his coat sleeve. Together they stepped out of the shelter. The man by the lamp post lowered his newspaper. The woman near the car straightened. The bus passenger moved a step closer. Amara's voice trembled. "Mr. Preston, they're looking at you." He exhaled shakily. "Keep walking. Slow. Don't run yet." Amara obeyed, even though her small hand trembled in his. They moved toward the main street. Preston glanced behind them. The man in the raincoat had started walking. The woman was speaking into her sleeve. The bus passenger was adjusting something in his ear. Not good. Not good at all. He picked up his pace. Just then. A loud click echoed behind them. A security vehicle door opening. Amara flinched. What was that? Nothing, Preston lied, voice tight. Just keep going. They crossed halfway through the street when a voice, cold, too calm, cut through the air. "Preston Hale." Amara froze. Preston felt the name slice through him like a blade. His name. His real name. Spoken aloud for the first time in months. Slowly, he turned. The man in the raincoat stood behind them now, hood off, revealing a face Preston recognized instantly. Cole Maddox. Head of Corporate Special Security. The man his board hired after the takeover. "Hello, sir," Cole said, voice smooth as ice. "It's time to come with us." Amara squeezed Preston's hand. "Who are they?" she whispered. He lowered himself slightly so she could hear his trembling voice. "People I never wanted you to meet." Amara's eyes widened in fear. And in that instant, Preston realized something with terrifying clarity. If he didn't protect this child, she would be caught in the crossfire of a war she didn't even know existed. The hidden threat was no longer hidden. It was standing 10 feet away. And closing in. The street suddenly felt too quiet, too still, like the whole world was inhaling before something terrible happened. Cars slowed. Rain tapped faintly on metal rooftops. Amara clung to Preston's coat sleeve, her eyes wide and frightened. Cole Maddox took a step closer, water dripping from his coat. "Don't make this difficult, Mr. Hale. We've been looking for you for months." Preston gently pushed Amara behind him. Every muscle in his body tightened. He wasn't afraid for himself, not anymore. But for her. "I'm not going anywhere with you," Preston said, voice firm despite the tremble running through him. Cole exhaled like he was tired of this game. "You don't have a choice. The board demands your presence. You're costing the company billions with your little escape act. Now, come quietly." 2 more agents stepped out of the black SUV behind Cole. Their movements were sharp. Calculated. Predatory. Amara whimpered. "Mr. Preston, are they bad people?" He didn't answer. Because the truth was complicated. But the danger was not. "Take the girl away," Cole said to the woman agent. "We don't need the child involved." Amara's breath hitched. "No, no. Mr. Preston." Preston stepped back instantly, shielding her with both arms. "You're not touching her." Cole raised an eyebrow. "You care about a street kid now? Interesting. I didn't expect you to get attached." "She has nothing to do with this." "She has everything to do with this," Cole countered. "You've been hiding among the homeless, sabotaging our search, disappearing from cameras, and now you're distracted by a child. It proves you're not stable enough to control the company." Preston's jaw clenched. "You don't get to talk about my stability after what you all did." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Enough." He flicked his fingers. The woman lunged toward Amara. Amara screamed. Preston reacted before he even thought. Throwing his whole body forward, knocking the woman off balance. She stumbled into the street, cursing, while 2 bystanders gasped from the sidewalk. "Run!" Preston shouted to Amara. "Go!" But Amara was frozen. Her legs stiff with fear. Her breath short and panicked. She couldn't move. Cole clicked his tongue. "You're making this messy, Preston." He motioned again. This time, the male agent charged, aiming straight for Preston's ribs. Preston dodged clumsily, his body weaker than it once was, but his desperation added strength he didn't know he still had. The agent swung. The punch grazed Preston's jaw, sending him stumbling into a mailbox. "Stop it!" Amara cried. "Leave him alone." "Enough!" Cole barked. "Grab the girl, now." The woman agent sprinted toward Amara again. Preston's heart lurched. He pushed off the mailbox, ignoring the pain shooting through his side, and ran toward them. His foot slipped in a puddle, but he caught himself and lunged. He collided with the woman before she could reach Amara. They both hit the ground. Preston's shoulder exploded with pain, but adrenaline kept him moving. Amara finally unfroze and ran to him. "Mr. Preston, get up." He forced himself onto his knees. "Stay behind me. Don't move." Cole's patience snapped. His voice sliced through the air. "Take them both." Preston's blood ran cold. The male agent charged again, this time pulling something from his belt. A stun device. High voltage. Illegal for civilian use. Amara gasped. "What is that?" Preston didn't answer. He grabbed her arm and yanked her backward just as the agent swung the stun baton. Sparks whirled inches from Preston's face, lighting the rain with blue flickers. If that hit him, he wouldn't get back up. The agent lunged again. Preston shoved Amara behind a parked car. "Stay down." "But..." "No matter what happens," he whispered urgently, "don't let them take you." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Please don't leave me." "I won't." He stood again, weak, exhausted, but unbreakable. The agent attacked one more time. Preston dodged, barely, grabbing the agent's wrist and slamming it against a street pole. The stun baton clattered to the ground. The woman agent grabbed Preston's shoulder from behind. He spun, striking her arm, but she was trained, stronger than he remembered corporate security ever being. Cole stepped forward, smirking. "You can't win. You're not the man you used to be." Preston wiped blood from his lip, breathing hard. "You're right." Then his eyes hardened. "But I'm still a father." Cole opened his mouth. But before he could speak, a loud shout cut through the chaos. "Hey! What's going on here?" People had begun gathering. A crowd forming. Phones out. Cameras recording. The agents hesitated. Cole's jaw clenched in frustration. Preston, beaten and shaking, took the chance. He grabbed Amara's hand. "Run," he whispered. "Now." And this time, she ran with him. Together, they disappeared into the maze of alleys as shouts, confusion, and the first true wave of danger echoed behind them. The attack had begun. And it wouldn't be the last. Preston and Amara darted around the corner of the narrow alley, their footsteps splashing through puddles as the world blurred around them. Preston's lungs burned. Every breath felt sharp. His legs trembled beneath him, weakened by months of surviving on scraps and cold pavement. But he did not stop. Not while Amara clung to his hand. Not while danger closed in behind them. "Mr. Preston," Amara panted, "where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," he managed, though he wasn't sure such a place existed anymore. They slipped behind a stack of crates, crouching in the shadows. Preston's chest heaved as he listened for pursuit. Voices grew louder at the alley's entrance. "Fan out," Cole ordered. They couldn't have gone far. Amara squeezed Preston's trembling hand. "They're coming back." He inhaled sharply, trying to quiet the pounding of his heart. He had no strength left. No plan. No weapon. No allies. But then... a new sound emerged. Slow. Heavy. Confident footsteps from the opposite end of the alley. Preston stiffened. Not another agent. Not another enemy. A silhouette stepped into view, a broad-shouldered figure wearing a dark jacket and a badge clipped to the belt. The man moved with authority, purposeful and unwavering. Detective Raymond Holt. Preston's eyes widened. He hadn't seen the detective in nearly a year, not since the scandal, the betrayal, and his disappearance. Holt's gaze swept the alley until it landed on Preston and Amara. His expression sharpened instantly. "Preston," he whispered under his breath, stunned. "My God, it really is you." Amara tugged Preston's sleeve. "Do you know him?" "Yes," Preston breathed. I just never thought I'd see him again. Before he could stand, Cole and two agents came around the corner. Cole froze mid-step. Detective Holt. Holt turned slowly, posture calm but poised like a loaded spring. Funny running into you here, Cole. Last time I checked, corporate security had no authority to chase people through public streets. Cole's smile tightened. We're conducting a private recovery operation. Holt raised a brow. Is that what you call assaulting an unarmed man and attempting to abduct a child? Cole's eyes flicked toward Preston and Amara. This doesn't concern the police. It does now, Holt replied, stepping in front of them with the practiced ease of someone who had spent years stopping dangerous men. Step away. The woman agent scoffed. Detective, this is a misunderstanding. Save it, Holt said sharply. I heard the screams myself. And unless your company suddenly gained legal jurisdiction over minors, you're done here. Cole's jaw clenched. The board won't like this. Holt smirked. Oh, they'll hate it. The male agent shifted, hand hovering near his stun baton. Holt didn't move, but his tone dropped dangerously. Touch that weapon and I'll have you all in handcuffs before you blink. The agent froze. Even Amara felt the shift, the way Holt's presence swallowed the alley. Not through intimidation, but through an unshakable authority that made everyone else seem smaller. Cole exhaled sharply. Detective Holt, we can settle this privately. No, Holt said simply. You don't get to attack a vulnerable man and a child on my streets. And you don't get to walk away like nothing happened. Cole's facade finally cracked. A rare hint of frustration broke through his polished calm. This isn't over, he growled. No, Holt agreed, it isn't. Cole motioned to his agents. Fall back. They retreated, vanishing into the shadows, their footsteps echoing until the alley grew quiet once more. Amara exhaled shakily. Are they gone? For now, Holt said gently, turning back to them. His stern expression softened when he saw her face. You must be Amara. She blinked, surprised. How do you know my name? Holt smiled faintly. Because Preston talks about the people who help him. Even when he thinks no one's listening. Preston looked at him, stunned. You were still looking for me? Holt placed a steady hand on Preston's shoulder. I never stopped. Preston's voice broke. Why? Because I knew the truth, Holt said quietly. I knew you didn't run away for no reason. And because you're my friend. Preston swallowed hard. He hadn't heard that word directed at him in a very long time. Friend. Amara stepped between them, little voice trembling with relief. So, we're safe now. Holt glanced toward the street, eyes narrowing. You're safe with me, he said. But the danger isn't gone. He bent down so he was eye level with her. And I promise you, Amara. I'll keep both of you safe. Her small hand slipped into his. And for the first time since the attack began. Preston felt hope return. Not just because he had a protector. But because someone believed in him again. Detective Holt led Preston and Amara through a maze of narrow backstreets, avoiding main roads where Cole's agents might be watching. The rain had settled into a steady drizzle, turning the city into a gray blur. Amara clung to Preston's coat with one hand and Holt's fingers with the other, her knees still shaking from the earlier attack. When they finally reached Holt's unmarked car, he opened the back door. Get in. Both of you. Preston gently guided Amara inside before sliding in after her. Holt took the driver's seat, scanning the mirrors before pulling away from the curb. Detective, Preston said quietly, you shouldn't involve yourself in this. Cole and the board have more power than you know. Holt let out a short breath. You think I'm afraid of those corporate sharks? Preston, you vanished after accusing them of illegal asset transfers and insider fraud. Then the board magically produced evidence that you were the one laundering money. None of it ever made sense. It wasn't supposed to, Preston muttered. Holt shot him a look. Exactly. Because it was a setup. And now that you're alive and talking, they're desperate to drag you back before you expose them. Amara hugged her backpack tighter. Why are they so mean? Why do they want to hurt Mr. Preston? Preston swallowed, then spoke softly. Because I know things, Amara. Things the wrong people want to hide. And because, Holt added, he trusted the wrong man inside the company. Preston closed his eyes briefly. The sting of betrayal still lived there, raw and unhealed. Draven Hale, he whispered. My brother. Amara gasped softly. Your brother did that? Preston nodded. He wanted complete control of the company. Of the money. Of everything our father built. But I wasn't willing to cut corners or let him bury crimes in the accounting system, so he made sure I became the villain instead. And he almost succeeded, Holt said grimly. Until today. Preston turned to him, tense. What do you mean? Holt glanced in the rearview mirror. You weren't the only one being watched. After you disappeared, Draven hired private trackers to search for you. But the truth is. A black SUV appeared in the mirror. Holt's grip tightened on the wheel. Preston's heart dropped. Is that? Yes, Holt said, pulling into the next lane. They found us. Amara whimpered. Not again. The SUV accelerated. Holt cursed under his breath. Hold on. The car lurched forward as Holt pressed the gas. Pedestrians blurred past. Traffic lights flashed overhead. The SUV matched their speed, headlights glaring through the rear window. They're pushing us toward the industrial district, Holt said. They'll try to trap us where fewer people are around. Preston's voice trembled. Can you outrun them? I can try. The SUV swerved aggressively, clipping the side of Holt's car. Amara shrieked as the impact jolted them sideways. Stay down. Holt barked. Both of you. Another SUV turned in from a side road ahead. A blockade. No, Preston whispered. They planned this. Holt spun the wheel sharply, turning into a narrow alley between two warehouses. The car screeched, barely fitting through. The SUV followed. Metal scraped brick as both vehicles squeezed through the gap. Holt gritted his teeth. Persistent bastards. Suddenly, a third SUV blocked the alley exit. Holt slammed the brakes. Preston's body jolted forward, caught only by his seatbelt. Amara buried her face into Preston's coat. Cole Maddox stepped out of the front SUV, calm despite the rain, his coat untouched by panic. Two agents flanked him. Holt muttered, this just turned into a standoff. Cole approached slowly, spreading his hands as if offering peace. Detective Holt. You are interfering in a corporate matter far above your clearance. Hand over Mr. Hale, and we can pretend this didn't happen. Holt opened his door, standing tall despite being outnumbered and cornered. I don't take orders from thugs pretending to be businessmen. Cole smirked. Detective, you're outgunned. Maybe, Holt said. But I'm not alone. Cole's confidence flickered. What does that mean? Holt nodded toward the rooftops. 3 red laser dots appeared, one on Cole's shoulder, one on the agent to his left, and one directly on the hood of the SUV behind them. Cole tensed. Snipers. Holt smirked. The police follow their detectives. Especially when they suspect foul play. But Cole recovered quickly. This doesn't change anything. If you take Preston, the company will bury every one of you in lawsuits. Holt shrugged. That's a problem for tomorrow. Right now, you're threatening a child. Cole froze. His eyes flicked to the back seat. To Amara. To her trembling hands and wet braids. His jaw tightened, but he didn't step back. She complicates things, Cole muttered. The board won't be pleased. Holt stepped closer. If you want Preston, you'll have to come through me, my team, and every camera in this industrial yard. He pointed upward. Cameras blinked red from every corner of the warehouse walls. Cole finally stepped backward. Not defeated. But forced to retreat. This isn't over, Cole warned. Draven wants his brother back. And you can't hide from him forever. Holt didn't blink. Watch us. Cole signaled the retreat. The SUVs reversed, engines growling, disappearing like shadows melting into the rain. Holt rushed back to the car. We're leaving. They'll regroup. Preston held Amara close as Holt sped away from the trap. Tears finally slid down Amara's cheeks. Mr. Preston, why won't they leave us alone? He hugged her tightly. Because the truth scares them. Holt nodded. And now that they know you're alive, they'll come harder. Preston whispered, then we need a plan. Holt agreed. Because the war had officially begun. And the next move would shake everything. Holt's car sped through the industrial district until the warehouses faded behind them. Eventually, the detective pulled into an abandoned parking lot behind an old community center, one with boarded windows and peeling paint. It wasn't much, but it was quiet, hidden, and safe enough for a moment. Preston opened the car door and stepped out slowly, still holding Amara's hand. She stayed close, clinging to him as if any distance might let danger slip between them. Holt scanned the area before locking the doors. This place was shut down years ago. No cameras. No corporate surveillance. We can breathe here. Amara tugged Preston's sleeve. Mr. Preston, are you okay? He knelt down in front of her, forcing a weak smile. Yes. Because you're safe. She frowned. But they hurt you. They chased us. I don't understand. Why do they want you so badly? Preston's eyes dropped to the cracked pavement. He had avoided this. 4 months. Years. Even from himself. But Amara deserved the truth. Especially after everything she'd risked for him. He took a long breath. Amara, there is something I need to tell you. Something big. Her eyes widened, anxious but trusting. Okay. Holt stepped closer, placing a hand on Preston's shoulder. It's time, Preston. She needs to know who you are. And why this is happening. Preston nodded softly. My real name is Preston Hale. Amara blinked. But that's what they called you. Yes, he said. Because they know exactly who I am. He swallowed hard, voice trembling. Amara. I'm not just a man who lost his home. Before all of this, I was the CEO of a company called Hale Innovations. Her mouth fell open. CEO. That's like, the boss of everything. He chuckled weakly. Something like that. Does that mean you were rich? She whispered. Very, he admitted. More money than I ever needed. More than I ever deserved. Amara stared at him as if trying to fit the image of the ragged, gentle man she knew with the title she'd only ever heard on TV. Then why are you here? Why were you outside and hungry? Preston's expression tightened. Pain flashed across his features. Not physical, but deep, old, emotional pain. Because I trusted the wrong person, he said softly. My brother, Draven. Amara frowned. The one Holt told us about. Yes. He wanted control. So he made a plan, one that would destroy me and make it look like I destroyed myself. He sat back on the pavement, face tilted upward as if searching the gray sky for strength. He forged documents. Hired people to lie. Told the world I was stealing from the company. Laundering money. Hiding assets. When I tried to reveal the truth, he set up a board meeting to confront me, a meeting where he accidentally leaked fabricated evidence before I could defend myself. Amara gasped. But that means everyone believed him. Yes, he whispered. Everyone. Investors. The media. Even my daughter. His voice cracked. Amara's eyes softened. She inched closer. Lily. Preston shut his eyes. Draven told her I was sick. Unstable. Dangerous. He convinced her and her mother to file a legal order, preventing me from seeing her until the investigation was over. Tears slipped down his cheeks. Amara reached out and wiped one away with her small thumb, the way a mother might comfort a child. Preston inhaled shakily. And the board hired Cole to deal with me. Not to arrest me. Not to investigate. But to silence me. Amara's body stiffened. Silence you, like. He nodded. Like make me disappear. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Amara's voice trembled. But why didn't you go to the police? I did, Preston whispered. But Draven's money reached them before I could. The detectives assigned to my case were bribed. Except one. He looked at Holt. Except him. Holt's expression softened. I knew the Preston I met wasn't the kind of man who steals from his own company. And I knew his brother was exactly the kind of man who would. Amara hugged her backpack, tears gathering in her eyes. So, you ran. Yes, Preston said. Because if I stayed, they would have taken everything. My freedom. My voice. Maybe even my life. He took her small hands in his. And then. I met you. Amara sniffed, confused. But I didn't do anything. You did more than anyone, he whispered. You saw me. When the world stopped seeing me. You gave me the first good thing I've felt in a very long time. She leaned into him, hugging him tightly. He closed his eyes, hugging her back just as tightly. Holt watched them quietly, a rare emotion flickering behind his stern gaze. Finally, Preston pulled back. Amara. I promise you. I'm done running. She wiped her cheeks. Then what do we do? Preston looked at Holt. We fight. Holt nodded. And we expose everything. Detective Holt drove Preston and Amara straight to the heart of downtown, a risky move, but necessary. Preston needed visibility, witnesses, and cameras. If the board wanted to make him disappear, they would have to do it in front of the entire city. Holt parked 2 blocks from the towering headquarters of Hale Innovations, a 60-story monument of glass and steel bearing the family name Preston once wore with pride. Amara stared up at it, jaw hanging open. You used to work in that? Preston swallowed. I built it. Holt checked his weapon, then opened the door. Walk tall. They'll know you're here the second you step on the plaza. Preston helped Amara out of the car. She gripped his hand and held her head high, though her tiny body trembled from fear and cold. Crowds moved in and out of the building, employees, tourists, reporters. No one noticed them yet. But inside the lobby, Draven Hale stood in front of a cluster of board members, unaware of what was about to unfold. Holt nodded toward the entrance. This is your moment. Ready? Preston exhaled. Ready. They walked through the glass doors. Almost immediately, heads turned. Voices fell silent. People froze mid-step. Whispers rippled across the marble lobby. Is that? No way, Preston Hale is alive. I thought he ran. He looks awful, what happened to him? Phones lifted. Cameras clicked. Video streamed live. Preston's footsteps echoed loudly, each one reclaiming ground that had been stolen from him. On the mezzanine balcony, Draven turned toward the commotion. His eyes locked on Preston. For a split second, pure shock cracked through Draven's polished mask, before he quickly composed himself. "Brother," Draven called down, voice dripping with false warmth. "Long time no see." Preston stepped forward, the crowd parting around him. Amara stood slightly behind, clutching Holt's hand. "Draven," Preston said, voice steady. "I'm done hiding." Draven descended the grand staircase with careful, rehearsed precision. His expensive suit gleamed under the chandelier, every step a performance. "I was afraid something terrible happened to you," Draven said loudly, projecting for the recording phones. "You vanished during a crisis you caused, leaving me to clean the disaster." The board members nodded approvingly. Employees murmured. Amara tugged Holt's sleeve. "He's lying." "I know," Holt whispered. Preston lifted his chin. "Tell them the truth, Draven." Draven chuckled. "The truth?" "Brother, you laundered millions of dollars." "No," Preston cut in. "You did. You forged my signature. You bribed auditors. You manipulated my daughter and the press." Gasps echoed. Draven's smile twitched. Holt stepped forward, badge raised. "Detective Raymond Holt, SFPD. We are reopening the investigation into the Hale Innovations financial scandal. And new evidence has surfaced." Reporters swarmed like bees. "Detective, are you saying Preston Hale was framed? What evidence do you have? Is Draven Hale under investigation?" Draven stiffened. "This is absurd. He's mentally unstable." Preston glared at him. "If I'm unstable, then why are you afraid of a public investigation?" Draven opened his mouth. But Holt didn't give him the chance. He handed a flash drive to the nearest reporter. "This contains private emails, financial transfers, and whistleblower testimony linking Draven Hale to multiple counts of fraud." The board members erupted in panic. Cameras flashed. Security froze. Draven's mask shattered. "You traitor," he hissed at Holt. "You think this little stunt?" "It's not a stunt," Holt said calmly. "It's justice." Amara stepped forward, surprisingly bold. "And you hurt Mr. Preston. You tried to take him away. You're the bad guy." The lobby fell silent. Draven stared at her, a child in worn shoes, standing like a shield in front of Preston. "And who," Draven sneered, "is this little?" "She's the reason I'm still alive," Preston interrupted. "Her kindness saved me. Something you've never understood." Draven's fury snapped. "Enough," he roared, turning to the security team. "Arrest him." No one moved. Preston looked around, at the crowd, the phones, the cameras recording every second. "Do it," he said softly. "Arrest me." A beat passed. Then the head of building security stepped back and folded his arms. "We don't take orders from someone under active investigation." Draven's face went pale. Reporters circled him like vultures. Microphones appeared. Cameras shoved forward. "Draven, did you falsify company documents? Is it true you hired private agents to track your brother? Why is there evidence of offshore accounts? Did you lie about Preston's mental stability?" Draven backed away. "No, this is a setup, Preston is lying." "No," Holt said firmly. "You are." Security guards stepped forward, to escort Draven, not Preston. The crowd erupted. Some clapped. Some cried. Some recorded history in real time. Amara wrapped her arms around Preston's waist, trembling with relief. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Preston murmured, kneeling to hug her tight. We did. But the moment of triumph wasn't the end. It was the beginning of justice. A justice that would reshape everything. The company, the city, and most of all, Preston's legacy. The lobby of Hale Innovations buzzed with chaos as security escorted Draven toward the private detainment room. Reporters chased after him, cameras flashing in bursts of white that lit his twisted expression: rage, fear, disbelief. Preston stood in the center of the marble floor, Amara holding his hand, Holt standing like a sentinel at his side. The crowd around them murmured with excitement. He really was innocent. I knew something felt wrong about Draven. Poor guy, imagine losing everything and still standing strong. The public narrative had shifted in a matter of minutes. Preston was no longer the ghost of a fallen billionaire. He was a survivor stepping back into the light. Holt placed a reassuring hand on Preston's back. We need to move upstairs. Internal Affairs is on their way. They'll take your full testimony. Preston nodded slowly. And Draven? Holt's expression sharpened. He'll be charged with fraud, embezzlement, obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, and endangerment of a minor. His eyes softened. That last one is thanks to Amara's bravery. Amara blinked. I helped. Preston knelt so his face was level with hers. You saved my life, sweetheart. More than once. She wrapped her arms around his neck without hesitation, burying her face in his shoulder. For the first time in years, Preston felt something warm and whole radiate through him. A sense of belonging. Of hope. Of home. Holt cleared his throat, fighting a smile. All right, let's go before the press swallows us alive. They took the executive elevator, the one Preston once used every day. Only this time, he wasn't rising as a CEO. He was rising as a man reclaiming his truth. When the doors opened, the 40th-story conference room was already filled with investigators, police officers, and stunned board members. Most avoided his gaze, shame coloring their faces. The head investigator, a stern woman with silver-framed glasses, stepped forward. Mr. Hale, thank you for coming. We understand you've been the victim of an elaborate frame job. We'd like to start reviewing the newly surfaced evidence. Holt placed a thick folder on the table. Everything is here: bank transfers Draven forged, whistleblower statements, emails between Draven and the auditors he bribed, plus footage of Cole's team assaulting Preston and attempting to abduct him and the child. The investigator nodded. That will be more than enough. One board member, a man who once voted for Preston's removal, spoke shakily. Mr. Hale. I don't know how to apologize. Preston looked at him. Looked at all of them. In their eyes he saw guilt, regret, fear. But also a quiet plea for forgiveness. He took a breath. I don't need an apology. I just need the truth to be restored. The room fell silent. And, he continued, glancing at Holt, I want full immunity for this child. She is not to be questioned, harassed, or dragged into any legal battles. She is innocent. The investigator smiled warmly. Of course. This little girl is a hero. Amara blushed behind Preston's leg. The official statements began: paperwork, signatures, evidence verification. The process was long, exhausting, but for the first time in ages, every page signed brought Preston one step closer to justice. Hours later, an officer entered the room with an update. Detective Holt, Draven Hale has confessed to orchestrating the fraud. He implicated several other board members. He also admitted to ordering the pursuit of Preston when he disappeared. Murmurs rippled across the room. Preston's whole body slackened with relief, not joy, not triumph, but a deep exhale that felt like letting go of a weight he had carried alone for far too long. Holt turned to him, smiling softly. It's over, Preston. Preston nodded. No, not over. But starting again. He looked down at Amara, who had fallen asleep in a chair, clutching her backpack. He brushed her braid gently. She deserves a world where the good guys win, he said quietly. And today, maybe they finally did. Outside the glass windows, the city glowed with evening lights, bright, hopeful, alive. Justice had come. And with it, the doorway to everything that would happen next. The sun was just rising over the city when Preston stepped out of Hale Innovations headquarters. The long night of statements, evidence reviews, and legal confirmations had finally ended. Draven was in custody. Cole and the corrupt security agents were being processed. The public narrative had shifted like a tide, sweeping away lies, revealing truth. But Preston wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about the small girl holding his hand. Amara yawned loudly, her braids swaying as she rubbed her eyes. Mr. Preston, is it all over? He knelt beside her, brushing dried tears from her cheeks. Yes, sweetheart, he said softly. It's over. Because of you. She smiled sleepily, leaning into him with the trust only a child could give. Holt stepped out behind them, straightening his jacket. You two really need sleep, he said. And real food. Amara perked up. Can we get pancakes? Holt chuckled. Absolutely. But Preston didn't stand. He remained kneeling before Amara, emotions tightening in his throat, because there was something he had been afraid to say, afraid to even let himself think. What if, he murmured, choosing his words carefully, what if we went somewhere a little safer first? Somewhere just for you and your mom? Amara frowned. Mommy's at work. She doesn't get home until very late. Yes, Preston said gently. And she works so hard, doesn't she? Too hard. Because life hasn't been fair to her either. Amara nodded quietly. Well, Preston continued, maybe it's time someone helped her. Helped both of you. Amara blinked. But, who would help us? Preston smiled, soft, warm, and full of a gratitude he couldn't express in words. I would. Her eyes widened. You. Yes. He placed both hands on her shoulders. Amara, you saved my life. You gave me kindness when I had nothing. Because of you, the truth came out. Because of you, I get to see my daughter again. Lily, she whispered. He nodded, eyes shining. I'm meeting her today. And I want you to meet her too. Her hands flew to her chest. Really? Yes, he said. Really. The morning breeze carried the scent of fresh rain, the scent of renewal. Holt stepped forward. Your legal name has been cleared in the system. Assets unfrozen. You're officially back. Preston rose slowly, absorbing the words that felt surreal after months of surviving on the streets. Back. A word he thought he'd never hear again. But he didn't feel like the man he used to be, the one who lived in penthouses and boardrooms. He felt like a different kind of man now. One shaped not by wealth or power, but by compassion. Detective, Preston said quietly, I want to rebuild. But not the way I had before. Holt crossed his arms. What are you thinking? Preston looked down at Amara, at her taped shoes and brave little heart. I want to start a foundation. For children like her, children who fall through the cracks. Children who give so much but receive so little. Amara's mouth dropped open. For kids like me? Yes, Preston said, kneeling again so he was eye level with her. Children with big hearts and small chances. Children who deserve safety, education, and a future. Tears welled in her eyes. But why would you do that? His voice cracked. Because you changed me. And I want the world to know your kindness. I wanted to change others the way it changed me. She threw her arms around his neck. He hugged her tightly, lifting her gently as she cried into his shoulder, not in fear this time, but in overwhelming relief. Holt cleared his throat, eyes misty though he tried to hide it. "Come on," he said, "before I start crying too." Preston laughed softly, carrying Amara toward the car. But before they reached it, a familiar voice echoed across the plaza. "Preston." He froze. Amara turned in his arms. A woman stood at the curb, hands trembling, eyes red from sleeplessness, and beside her, holding tightly to her leg, was a girl with chestnut hair tied in a ponytail, a shy stuffed bunny poking out of her backpack. Lily. Preston's breath broke. He lowered Amara gently to her feet. He took one step, then another, until he stood in front of the daughter he had not held in months. Lily stared up at him, her lips trembling. "Daddy?" His heart shattered and rebuilt itself all in the same second. "Yes," he whispered. "It's me. I'm here." She ran into his arms, sobbing. He lifted her, crushed her to his chest, kissing her hair, whispering apologies, whispering love, whispering everything he thought he'd never get to say again. People stopped. Watched. Some cried. Some bowed their heads. Amara took Holt's hand, smiling softly. "I told you he was a good person." Holt nodded. "Yes, kiddo. You sure did." After minutes that healed years, Preston set Lily down and looked between the two little girls. "Lily," he said softly, "this is Amara. She saved your daddy." Lily wiped her tears and stepped forward shyly. "Thank you for helping him. I missed him so much." Amara smiled. "I missed him too." They hugged, a tiny, perfect hug. A new beginning. A new family. Later that morning, Preston stood before a crowd of reporters outside the courthouse, Holt beside him, Amara holding one hand and Lily holding the other. He took a breath, looking at the sea of faces. "Months ago," Preston said, "I lost everything. My company. My reputation. My family. But what saved me wasn't power or money. It was kindness." His voice strengthened. "A little girl with worn shoes gave me hope. A detective who believed in justice gave me protection. And today, I stand here restored, not for myself, but for them, and for everyone who's ever been silenced, overlooked, or betrayed." Amara squeezed his hand, proud. "I will rebuild Hale Innovations," he continued. "But I will also build something new, a foundation dedicated to helping the children who deserve better chances. A legacy not of wealth, but of compassion." Cameras flashed. Applause erupted. Amara leaned into him. "Mr. Preston, is this what new beginnings feel like?" He smiled down at her, a smile filled with gratitude, love, and purpose. "Yes," he whispered. "This is exactly what they feel like." He lifted both girls into his arms as the morning sun finally broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the plaza. A billionaire regained his power. A father regained his daughter. A little girl changed the world with a sandwich. And together, they began a new legacy, one built not on fortune, but on kindness.